All right, guys, we're going to start today's show shortly. Getting started a little bit late today. We apologize for that. That's on me. Been busy around here. Take a look at the screen and check out the headlines we're going to cover today on the show. Give the show a like and a share anywhere you are watching. We're live on all social media platforms currently. We will talk development, real estate, a new business that's for sale. We'll talk about the Champion Hospitality Group. We have an idea that could help the community in regards to First Night Virginia not happening on the downtown mall. I believe you have some more insight that you can offer on this. On First Night Virginia that we talked about. If you want to, don't have to. Completely your call. That's Judah Wickower who I'm talking with. Look at the screen. We got a new police chief name. I was obviously surprised by the new police chief. We'll talk Bobby Yarborough's idea that we didn't have time to get to yesterday. We'll get to that today, certainly. And more today on the I Love CVille show. Give it a like, give it a share. Look at the screen and see the headlines that we will discuss today. We work hard for you, and the only thing we ask in return is you participate in the discussion. And as you participate with comments or perspective, you shape the show, and we relay those comments live on air. You have a two-shot ready to rock and roll there, J-Dubs? Excellent. Thank you. Today's Tuesday, right? Days run together. Run together. All right, things are looking good on my end. J-Dubs, we can lock and rock when you're ready, sir. Guys, good Tuesday afternoon. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille show. Thank you kindly for joining us. Live in downtown Charlottesville, our audience is all the social media platforms out there today. You, the viewer and listener, can put comments on the social platforms this show is airing upon, and we will relay those comments live on air to you, the viewer and listener of this fine and fair talk show. Let me give you a heads up on some of the topics we'll talk about today. We will talk real estate and development, and again, with the focus on western portion of the Charlottesville urban ring, this time Old Ivy Road. Old Ivy Road is that sliver of roadway that's adjacent to Ivy Road. It's the road that you go under that railroad underpass, the road that is where Huntington Village is. The Ivy Inn restaurant is along Old Ivy Road. It's right past the car wash on Ivy Road. If you drive past the car wash, you'll see the railroad underpass. And as you go under that one-way underpass, you get on Old Ivy Road where there are offices there, there are townhouses, and it's an access point to Route 250. A lot of people don't realize this, but there's an apartment complex developer called Greystar who is planning 500 plus apartments for students along Old Ivy Road. You're showing the photo on screen. That was nicely done, Judah. Look at our enterprising director, Judah Wickower. Look at the screen now. Look at the screen now. The circle in place is where Old Ivy Road is, and where Huntington Village is, and where a planned but still needing approval 500 plus apartment complex could be built? I'm going to ask this question on today's show. Knowing what you know today of Old Ivy Road, you have St. Anne's Belfield over there, you have the 250 traffic that can back up off that exit onto actual 250 itself. Old Ivy Road spits out to where Bel Air is located, the gas station where you can buy fabulous sandwiches. My particular favorite sandwich is the Keswick. I think the Suttons do a hell of a job with Tiger Fuel and their gas and sandwich and propane business. It's right across, Old Ivy Road spits out right across from the neighborhood Bel Air, which is a Tony high-dollar neighborhood. I'm going to ask you, the viewers and listeners, this question. And then I'm going to answer it with my opinion. I'm not saying my opinion's right, but I talk about topics that matter, that are local, that could impact the community. That's what the show's about. Should 500 plus, more than 500 apartments that are currently being planned, Greystar, which is a builder of apartments for college students, should these apartments be built along Old Ivy Road, 500 of them? Is the infrastructure in place for building apartments along Old Ivy Road? That topic on today's show. We will get to that in a matter of minutes on the I Love CVille show. I'm also going to talk about the police chief that was named last night. We let you know last week. I think we were the first to let you know because we actually read the agendas of city council meetings and board of supervisor meetings that a police chief would be named last night. I expected it to be Tito Durrett. Tito Durrett was not named. I thought Tito Durrett was the right choice. I'm shocked that Tito Durrett did not get named. We will let you know who was named and discuss the challenge this man has in front of him as he takes this police chief job in January. That topic will be the lead of the show. We'll talk about that in about 60 seconds. We'll talk about the Champion Hospitality Group. Look, it's no secret. I'm not speaking out of turn here. It's no secret that Champion Hospitality Group has seen some better days. That's fair, right, Judah? I don't feel like I'm speaking ill will. I'm choosing my words carefully. Look, I'll cut to the chase here. If you want to welcome Judah on a two-shot, look, the proprietor or the owner of Champion Hospitality Group is Hunter Smith. Hunter undoubtedly has said some very nasty things about me on social media. He's flexed his keyboard muscles and said some nasty things. I have not responded with anything nasty in return. I'm going to stay above that, Hunter. I certainly don't want to kick a dog while the dog is down. And the dog is down right now. We'll talk about some of the extremely visible turns of events in regards to Champion Hospitality Group on this show. And we will keep it respectful, even though that's not being returned, and above board. Also on the program, we'll tell you about a new business that's for sale. A party bus, winery and brewery party bus that's for sale for $85,000. And we'll ask this question. Should Ix Park and Ludwig Kutner and Alan Kajin and Susan Kerschel of Ix Park and the Ix Park Foundation, should they rise to the occasion like they have in so many circumstances and fill the void of First Night Virginia? Am I on a 1 over here?
Yeah, you want to be on a 2?
No, we'll bring you in on a 2. I'm trying to get, my beard game is not as good as you. I'm trying to get to Judah Wickhauer's beard game. Your beard game is always flawless. Oh, you're on the 2 here? Are we showing your beard game?
There we go.
Look at your beard game. Your beard game's on point. My beard game is still very scruffy. This is the face of a man whose family welcomed a newborn child into the mix 2 Sundays ago. So our son is now, what is that, almost 9 days old. My wife is a superhero. Last night she had an older son, our older son, who was feeling a little so-so, and an 8-day-old, like in both her arms, making things happen. I mean, she's just absolutely unbelievable. Maybe we start with the police chief, J-Dubs.
Sure.
He was selected last night. How do you think we pronounce his last name? Michael.
I've heard it pronounced Kachis.
By NBC 29.
I believe so.
Michael Kachis.
Yeah.
Okay. I was surprised that Michael Kachis was the pick. I'm going to relay the resume of Michael Kachis to you guys. I have that in front of me. Okay. And it's not me throwing shade on Michael Kachis. Right. Why I was surprised that he was selected was because Tito Durrett was in the mix.
Yeah,
and
they're all fairly local, but Durrett has been on the job
for over 30 years,
and
in the department.
Yeah, and has been on this job recently
for a year.
Yeah, so he's got the institutional memory. He's got the knowledge of the people, the players, and
lives in the community.
Yeah,
Charlottesville High School, police explorer. Head of the traffic department at one time, worked in SWAT. Interestingly, Tito Durrett named in the lawsuit that Brackney has brought upon the Charlottesville City, $10 million lawsuit claiming she was fired for being a black woman. I'm not sure if that impacted in any way the hiring, the fact that Tito Durrett was not hired. So I'm going to ask these questions when it applies to the police chief. Why was Michael Kachis hired? I'm going to ask you this question: is Michael Kachis the right hire? I'm going to ask this question: was it a mistake not to hire Tito Durrett? I'm going to ask this question: if you're Tito Durrett and you've been the interim police chief for over a year, and you've been in the department for over 30 years, and you have Charlottesville in your blood, and you get bypassed for this job, do you now consider leaving?
Depends if you really wanted the job.
Right? We'll ask that question. And then we'll ask the question, what are the challenges that Michael
Kachis
has in front of him? Mr. Michael Kachis. First, his resume. It's a pretty damn good one. From an educational standpoint, he's got a Master of Public Safety from the University of Virginia. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice Administration from Columbia Southern University. He's got a graduate certificate in criminal justice education from UVA. He's a certified public manager designation, a CPM, from the Washington, D.C. Council of Governments. Additional education, FBI National Academy, Senior Management Institute for Police, FBI Media Relations Seminar, Narcotic Unit Commander course. I mean, this guy is qualified. He was the police chief, the chief of police in Warrenton from 2020 through this year. So a couple of years as the chief of police in Warrenton. He spent 2004 to 2019 as a commander in the Alexandria Police Department. Do you have a headshot of him?
I do. Let's see.
Juda's going to put a headshot of the new police chief who starts in January on screen.
There he is.
He's on screen?
Yep.
Look at the screen, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the screen, boys and girls. Michael Kachis on screen. The reason he was hired as police chief, Michael Rogers, the interim city manager, the consultant from the Robert Bob Group who made this hire, the reason this man was hired was because of his significant levels of engagement in Warrenton, Virginia. In fact, this man, Michael
Kachis.
I like doing that. It's very enjoyable. You're much better at pronouncing things than I am. Mm-hmm. The reason Michael
Kachis
was hired was his level of engagement at Warrenton. He created this program, Judah, where when a Warrenton police officer stops somebody, had an interaction with somebody, citation, arrest, something along those lines. This,
is that the you can give feedback on them?
yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
it was a business card given that included a QR code on it. And whoever was involved in the traffic stop, the citation, the arrest, the interaction of any kind with the police officer. Do you say police or police? Police or police?
I say police.
I say police. Police. The interaction was something that you could grade.
Yeah.
So you give them a business card, and when you gave that business card had a QR code, and you could rate. My mentor, Bill Nitchman, just walked by. Did you see Bill?
Yeah.
Bill taught me so much about real estate.
Him, but
Taught me so much about real estate. And you could grade the officer on the job they did.
yeah.
Interestingly, Michael Kochis, his reputation came with some glowing references, including from the Warrenton local chapter of the Black Lives Matter movement
Wow.
and the NAACP. Let's cut to the chase. This is a white man. This is a white male.
The only white male in the three-man finalists.
The only white male of 3 people selected. I mean, this is obvious, okay? We're not. This is us using our eyes to offer analysis and commentary.
Yeah.
So when you're a white male at a time where white men in 2022 are often
Vilified.
could be, can be at times. That's at times applicable, yeah. You're also following in the wake of Al Thomas, who was
Al Tom. I don't know much about Al.
a black man,
Okay.
and Rachel Brackney, who was,
Clearly a black woman.
okay? And as Judah identified, the only candidate of the 3 who was
White.
Michael Kochis got hired.
Yeah.
So he strategically, in his application, in building his hiring brand for police chief for Charlottesville, got references from the local chapter of the Black Lives Matter movement in Warrenton and from the NAACP. That would be very strategic.
Definitely.
Would you not agree?
Yeah.
It's certainly in a very, would you call it, Charlottesville's very progressive? Would you call that? That's fair?
Certainly.
Very progressive
Yeah.
city. So that's something that immediately we noticed. Michael Rogers, the interim city manager, straight up said this. The reason that Michael Kochis was hired was his level of community engagement with the Warrenton community. In fact, I'll read the quote from Michael Rogers. Michael Rogers, the hired mercenary, the city manager, the consultant from the Robert Bogg Group, said, quote, Charlottesville city citizens wanted someone who was focused on community involvement and not just community engagement. Kochis demonstrated that he's done that in Warrenton. Interestingly, Tito Durrett focused in his interviews on community engagement and not necessarily community involvement. So Rogers, the city manager, in that quote, he said, Charlottesville citizens wanted someone who was focused on community involvement, not just community engagement. That was an indication Rogers saying why Durrett didn't get the job. Can you help me understand the difference between community involvement and community engagement?
I've been trying to figure that out since you first said the two of them. Let's see. Community involvement.
Viewers and listeners, Carol Thorpe, Queen and Jack Jewett,
Community engagement.
Daniel Pettit, Kevin Higgins, Kevin Yancey,
And they want they want involvement over engagement.
Lisa Costello. They want involvement over engagement.
I would guess that involvement is like getting out there, being in the thick of it, shaking hands, meeting people, being actually involved in the community that you're part of, whereas engagement, maybe that just means engagement. And that's a tough one. I mean, it's kind of vague. Community engagement.
Anyone help me?
It's kind of like one of those phrases that really doesn't tell you much.
Someone? Anyone? Community involvement versus community engagement. And will you check the I Love Seville Facebook page? Okay. Not the group, but the I Love Seville one Facebook page on the stream, if you could, for us there, J-Dubs. And let us know if that needs to be activated over there again for us. So Roger said that's why Kachis was hired. I thought Durrett should have been the hire. I don't know if Durrett was not hired because he was involved with this. We good with that one?
Yeah, it's back on.
All right, thank you. I don't know if Durrett was not hired because he was named in the lawsuit, Brackney's lawsuit. Maybe Durrett was not hired because Michael Rogers, let's cut to the chase, doesn't have a lot of ties to Charlottesville. He's a consultant, and maybe he didn't appreciate as much as we do someone born and raised and maturing in this community, 30 plus years in the community, growing up and maturing as a man in the department. That means that has value to me. Maybe is not as much to Rogers, who's not from Charlottesville. Maybe it's because Michael Rogers, the consultant city manager, wanted a completely fresh start for the police chief, like a completely new face and outlook. I was surprised that Durrett didn't get the job. And I'm going to ask you this question, ladies and gentlemen. What does Tito Durrett do now?
Does he go back to his job as assistant?
Does Tito Durrett consider another police force? I'll put it in a sports analogy. ILC Facebook is back and active?
Yeah.
Certain?
It's off again.
If you're Tito Durrett, let's use a sports analogy. If you're on a football team and you've been the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator on a football team for 20 or 30 years, and the athletic director bypasses you and brings in a new head coach from a completely different program, instead of picking you as the permanent chief, even though you as the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator were the interim head coach for over a year and helped stabilize the department for over a year, as the interim head coach who's got 20 or 30 years of experience as an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator and a full year experience as an interim head coach, would you then stay on the football program and team as a new head coach comes in and supersedes your power and influence? That undoubtedly is a lot of pride swallowing that is going to happen. Going from calling the shots to now no longer calling the shots and having to step aside for someone who's got no real ties to the Charlottesville city jurisdiction or policing in Charlottesville. And let me ask you this question before we go on to the next topic. And Carol Thorpe, I'll get to your comments. Kevin Higgins, I'll get to your comments. Neil Williamson, I'll get to your comments here. Vanessa Parkhill, I promise I'll get to your comments. Lisa Costello, I'll get to your comments. Bill McChesney, the mayor of McIntyre, I'll get to your comments as well. How do you characterize Anonymous? I'll get to your comments. It was good seeing you yesterday. I'll get to your comments, Anonymous, on DM via Twitter on Graystar and on the police chief. how do you characterize the state of the union of the Charlottesville Police Department right now? You have roughly a third of the department vacant. Somewhere between 25 and 30% of the positions are currently unfilled, right? Over the last handful of months, you've had a slew of crime, including a murder in the downtown district, in a OK Corral gunfight in the shadows of a $500 a night hotel in the downtown district. Hell, over the weekend you had a self-inflicted gunshot wound on West Main Street. That's all we know about it. Anyone who says that there are not gangs prevalent in Charlottesville City or Albemarle County, they're huffing glue out of a Ziploc bag. There are gangs here. The crime is starting to creep into pockets, the crime is starting to creep out of pockets of Charlottesville that are historically crime-ridden and now slowly infiltrating aspects of Charlottesville that we otherwise have not seen crime. Do I think Charlottesville is unsafe? No. Do I think the downtown mall is unsafe? No. Would I take our nearly 5-year-old son and our nearly 9-day-old son to the downtown mall? Yes. Do I feel comfortable with my wife going downtown without me late at night? I think so. Would I feel comfortable with my wife alone late at night in downtown Charlottesville? Would you feel comfortable with her? I mean, you know her well. Late at night by herself downtown. I mean, you and I think you'd feel comfortable by yourself, right?
Yeah, I don't know about all of downtown Charlottesville, but on the downtown mall, yeah, definitely.
Even on the epicenter of the preferred nomenclature these days is houseless individuals. The epicenter of the houseless individuals in front of the transit station by the pavilion. Yes, the epicenter of houseless individuals is in front of the public transportation center, the home of the tourism welcoming center, because that makes a lot of sense. You'd feel comfortable with her alone on that side of the mall after 10 p.m.? I don't think she would feel comfortable doing that.
I think most people wouldn't, but have we, of all the problems that we've had in Charlottesville, have any of them, aside from some annoyances, have any of them been houseless related? I mean, we don't generally hear about houseless people.
There's clapping.
Being violent. That's what I mean.
Yeah, not the violence. I mean, there's clapping man.
Yeah, there's clapping man.
And there's the man that carries the stick.
Yeah, and chants, or used to chant. And
what's the matter? He carries like a Gandalf cane.
Yeah. And
you know who I'm talking about?
I think so. Guy with dreads.
Carries the Gandalf cane.
Yeah, he's the chanting guy, isn't he?
Chanting man. Chanting man is different than clapping man.
Yeah.
Clapping man is got some pythons, dude. Clapping man is jacked.
Yeah.
He's diesel.
I wouldn't want to mess with him.
Gandalf chanting man is not nearly as diesel as clapping man.
Yeah.
Right?
But you've got, you've got people that will come up and curse you out if you don't give them money, and there are some people who clearly have some issues going on, but I don't hear about anyone getting attacked by any of the house's population.
Okay, that's fair. So, how do you characterize the state of the union of the Charlottesville Police Department right now? And everybody who watches this program, and it takes a lot of balls to say what I'm just about to say. Maybe that's not the preferred. I shouldn't use that word. I'm a father of two now. I shouldn't be saying balls. It takes a lot of courage to say this. I stand with police. I back the blue.
Yeah.
I do not understand this defund the police, marginalize the police movement. I'd love to see the police department completely full.
A whole lot of defund.
Oh, it's very much out there. Socialist Twitter is all about that.
Okay.
We know who leads the charge for socialist Twitter. It's about I count 40 to 60 people.
And you're talking about local social
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Twitter?
Very much.
And they're still...
Oh, today. Because of the police chief news is top of mind. Going on now.
Okay.
Got to fill the vacancies. There's 25 to 30 of them in what, like 118,
Something like that.
115 person department? I mean, that's massive. Fill the spots. Get the spots full. Get a couple of beat cops walking up and down the police.
We've got a couple that you see on a regular basis.
Oh, he's fantastic. We talk all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Works the day shift. Maybe a couple of beat cops on the night shifts when the bars close.
Yeah.
You know? Get the patrols visible and active. Get them out there.
You're talking about the downtown mall?
Anywhere. Hell, it's 10.2 square miles. We're not talking about a massive city here.
Yeah.
It ain't that large. Patrol in Albemarle County is way more difficult. You're talking about a massive county. The city is tiny.
Yeah.
It's tiny. Get them out. I would say Michael
Conscious.
has his hands full and has a very dubious challenge in front of him.
Certainly work to be done.
You got 25 to 30% of the department empty. You got morale low. You got competing departments like Albemarle, Louisa, and jurisdictions adjacent to Charlottesville, hell, even Waynesboro, recruiting Charlottesville police officers, basically offering them the same wages, if not better, company vehicles to take home, and a hell of a lot less stress, much better quality of life, that are cherry-picking talent from the CPD. You talk about how many Charlottesville Police Department members that can live in the city itself, very few. If you can't afford to live in the city you serve, that's going to make you feel disenchanted.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
We talked about that.
You have various views on that, though.
We have various views on that. Absolutely. I see many, speaking of that, I see many of the police officers working second jobs, including security jobs at ball games, sporting events, and as doormen at certain venues. So we don't have to go down that Pandora's box today. Kotchis has got his hands full. What do we put the over-under at Michael Kotchis staying long-term in Charlottesville? If I put it at 5 years, do we think Michael Kotchis makes it 5 years in the Charlottesville Police Department? If I put the over-under at 5 years, Neil Williamson, would you bet a bottle of booze that Kotchis lasts 5+ years? Here's a better question. What is determined success or failure for this hire? Is success? I mean, Al Thomas was here for a New York Minute. Dr. Brackney was here for a cup of coffee. Tito Durrett was here for interim as a year. Before that, Longo was here for a long-ass time. What year marker determines success for this hire?
I would say first and foremost...
Because the dude I got to show respect. The police officer Kotchis did 2 years at Warrington. Not even 2 years at Warrington as the police chief.
He started in May, did you say?
2020 is what it says on the resume.
Okay.
So he would have needed to have started as police chief in Warrington on January 1, 2020 to make it 2 full years in Warrington. So you could say, let's just give him the benefit of the doubt and said he did 2 years as police chief at Warrington. I would not say that it's a hiring success story if he stays 2 years. Brackney was interviewing for a Dallas police chief job while the police chief of Charlottesville.
I wonder if she had that planned before she got in, or if it was a reaction to seeing what she had to work with.
I also found it intriguing that Brackney didn't live in city limits. Lived in a Pantops neighborhood, and I'll leave it at that. I'm surprised she didn't live in city limits as the police chief. I would say the hiring window of success has got to be at least 5 years. I mean, good God, it's going to take the new police chief a year to figure out the job. Certainly to fill the vacancies,
Yeah.
right?
I'd say that's his
Number one priority.
his priority has got to be to start filling those empty seats.
Human capital, number one priority is fill the vacancies. Close second priority has got to be community engagement. Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum, describes it like this. Engagement is transparency. Involvement is having an impact. Engagement is transparency. Involvement is having an impact. So Tito Durrett was using the word engagement. Michael
Conscious.
was using the word involvement.
Yeah.
2022, the era of 2022, that is a microcosm of the era we live in right there in 2022.
What's that?
Engagement is transparency, involvement is having an impact, and the difference for hiring.
Yeah.
I find it very intriguing from a politics standpoint. We'll go with the word politics, that the white man was chosen.
It's something that we're going to have to deal with for a long time. The question of whether anyone in a position like this is chosen for their skills or for their facing.
Their branding?
Their brand.
Their branding? The
Their-
brand
I
that
don't-
can be leveraged?
I don't mean their face as in.
Oh,
their,
I think
the
everyone
color of
knows
their
what they
face,
meant.
But I mean how they present as the choice.
As a brand.
Yeah.
As a brand. Right? As a brand is what you meant.
More or less.
Right. It's intriguing. We'll get to comments and then we'll go to Gray Star. Lisa Costello. Anyone who this is what Lisa Costello writes on the I Love Seville Facebook group. Is the page not active today?
I can't get it to go up on I Love Seville.
All right. We'll look into that afterwards. On the I Love Seville group, she says, anyone who wants the position of police chief in this town obviously has impaired judgment and thus not qualified for the position. Who in their right mind would want to be the police chief here? Lisa Costello says. Lisa Costello also says, I would describe involvement being an active part of the department, such as volunteer positions. Engagement can be more opinions. The difference between incorporating public input opinions and being active participant daily in the department. And she also says, Jerry Miller, this city spends hundreds of thousands for consultants from California on the regular, though we have experts at UVA right here. The city always respects the views of people from another state more than their own homegrown. A perfect example of this could be the police chief.
Man, somebody get Charlottesville some aloe because that was a burn.
Lisa Costello. She's bringing the fuego. The fuego on a Tuesday, Lisa Costello. Bob Yarborough, the king of Redfields. Oh my goodness, Jerry and Judah, Bob Yarborough says. That will make for some challenging encounters under the trestle. Bob Yarborough also adds this, the king of Redfields. He says, you may just have answered your question about why he was not hired, Tito Durrett. Possibly the interim period did not go so well.
Could be. Could be that he realized he needed some more experience before he fully took on the job. I honestly don't know how eager he was to put his name in the hat for the full-time position.
I disagree with you on that. I think he was eager, or he wouldn't have been one of the 3 finalists.
I
Because he could have pulled his name out. In fact, they had 2 other people pull their names out. It was 5 people that were on the finalist shortlist.
That's
And
fair. Like I said,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
He could have pulled his name out. I think he wanted the job.
Okay.
The question is, will Tito stay now that he's been bypassed? Officer
Yeah.
Durrett.
Right.
Vanessa Parkhill, the Queen of Earlysville, writes this. No surprise to me, Tito Durrett was not selected. Sometimes I feel like the city council is so put off by old Charlottesville that they want nothing to do with anything or anyone that's been around for a while. I hope the new chief is a great fit and provides great leadership for law enforcement in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Me too, Vanessa. And I think there is some truth to that. Let's go to Anonymous on Twitter. It was good seeing you yesterday, Anonymous on Twitter. And Anonymous has got some good commentary on the Gray Star apartments on Old Ivy Road that we're about to get to next. Anonymous on Twitter says, by the way, it's not just you guys noting that Kochis is white. Mayor Snook asked in last night's meeting about what references Rogers checked on. Rogers immediately came back with, I checked with the Warrenton Black Lives Matter organization and the NAACP, and that they gave glowing references. Anonymous, the I Love
Does that
C.
mean that Conscious didn't seek out the references?
I think, no. That's a good question. That's a good question. That's a great question.
He may not have actively put it on his, you talked earlier about him.
The strategy.
Yeah, molding his resume so that it was, so that it was.
Strategic.
Yeah.
I would think Kochis back-channeled with Black Lives Matter Warrenton and with the NAACP Warrenton about, hey, I need you to give me some props because I've done some good things here in Warrenton. I'm a white guy applying for this police chief job. There are 2 black males that are opposing me. The former 2 candidates were also African American, and it's a progressive city.
But if he came to them and said that, would they support him?
I don't think he would go about it saying like that. I think there's more nuanced about it. He would go to NAACP and Black Lives Matter Warrenton and say, will you give me a reference, please? Here's what I've done.
That's fair.
Much more nuanced way of positioning it. But let's cut to the chase and let's use the butter knife to cut through the butter. We're all eye test people who utilize common sense. And if Snook Mayor is asking that question, friend of the program, right down the hallway, literally just walked in front of the studio, Mayor Snook, and Rogers responds in that form, we know it's a talking point. We know it's a talking point. And that's just being realistic. Neil Williamson, how long is the average municipal police chief tenure? I would bet less than 5 years. That's a great question. How long is the average police chief tenure? He says he would bet it's less than 5 years. Great question. What the average is. Tim Longo was here certainly more than 5 years.
Would that be our own city or statewide or countrywide?
I would say rule of thumb countrywide for a municipality. And Charlottesville's not a large market where people who are qualified are looking to jump to higher markets, much like television broadcasters, utilizing Charlottesville for a 2 years proof of performance, and then going to a larger market like Richmond or DC or Phoenix. It's a fair comment. City manager is another good example. Tenures for city managers aren't long. They work short periods of time, and frankly, they either burn out or they burn bridges, and then they go to other jobs before they get fired. That's a fair comment. Tim Longo is the exception. He's not the norm.
Looks like 2.5 to 3 years is the average.
2.5 to 3?
Yeah.
All right, so then we would have to put the over-under at 3 years. Does Kochis make it 3 years? And if he's there less than 3 years, is the hire a failure? If he's longer than 3 years, is the hire a success? And then the next question is, did Tito Durrett stay around in the department knowing that the average is 3 years and maybe he gains even more experience? Officer Durrett, I think you're extremely qualified. I thought it should have been you who got this job. I don't think you need another 3 years to prove your worth. But maybe he says, I'll stay here another 2 to 3 and see if Kochis climbs the vertical ladder.
Yeah.
Kevin Yancey, let's see what the man is capable of. Within 6 months, we should have a pretty good idea of what he's about. Gwendolyn Gale Cassidy, the queen of Cosmopolitan, says she's watching in Iceland. Not kidding, the jail is in the Hilton Hotel in Iceland right now, and she is not joking.
Say that again?
She's watching in Iceland right now, Gwendolyn Gale Cassidy. She's the queen of travel, the queen of Cosmopolitan. And she says in Iceland, the jail is in a Hilton Hotel, and she's legitimately not joking.
They do a lot of other things to
That's amazing.
their prisoners in Scandinavian countries. I don't know specifics about particular countries, but I know that a lot of it is focused on preventing recidivism and rehabilitating, basically getting people ready to move into an actual job when they get out of
Progressive
prison.
policing.
Yeah,
It's called
because
progressive policing.
because they don't want
They don't want
professional criminals. And,
right, because
and-
that is a drain on taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
Jim Hingley and Joe Plantania utilize similar strategies, the Commonwealth's attorneys of Charlottesville and Albemarle County. Juan Sarmiento, the king of transportation, he's the lead technician at CAT with the CAT fleet. He thinks Tito Durrett's going to retire.
Retire?
Carol Thorpe says Chief Kachis. Carol Thorpe is the queen of Jack Jewett. Chief Kachis is highly qualified man who comes highly touted with glowing references from minority activist groups. He gives Charlottesville a fresh start as a fresh face while simultaneously not being a stranger
because
as a UVA alum. Sadly, I think Tito's involvement and leadership with the SWAT team, not so much the lawsuit, may have hurt him. That's a good point, Queen of Jack Jewett. And Carol Thorpe says, don't underestimate the underreported scandal of the SWAT team, and Tito was the eyes and ears of that department. Carol Thorpe, Queen of Jack Jewett. Kevin Higgins in Greenwood says, Tito knows our streets, its people, has always been visible, has engaged. Give me a break. There shouldn't have been a search to begin with. I agree with that. And he says, Kachis has great credentials, but it's not equal to 30 years working in the Charlottesville Police Department on the streets with citizens. I'm sure this guy, Kachis, is qualified anywhere, but we have a local guy with 11,000 days protecting our streets. They just bypass for a job he deserves. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
That's literally how I feel. All right, next topic. A lot of people don't know this. Old Ivy Road, put the map up. Anonymous, we're going to get to your comments here. You got the map of Old Ivy Road? Look at the screen. Look at the circle of this screen. +500 units are being, what's the right word here, Neil Williamson? Planned, proposed is a better word, Neil? You say proposed? Greystar is a builder of apartments for college students. And Greystar is planning 500+ units on Old Ivy Road. Dude, that road is so narrow. That road is heavily trafficked, especially at drive-in and drive-out time.
And it's horrible when it rains, isn't it?
Horrible when it rains. Flash floods happen on that road.
How many people have gotten stuck under that bridge?
Have you seen it when it rains there?
I've seen pictures. I may have tried it once or twice, but it would have been years, possibly even decades ago.
Flash floods happen on Old Ivy Road and under that underpass.
Yeah.
And has anyone tried to get off 250 and utilize basically Old Ivy Road that spits out by Tiger Fuel, the Bel Air Market, and across from the Bel Air neighborhood? Try to get on Ivy Road as St. Anne's Belfield is getting out of school? It is extremely arduous, challenging, difficult, congested, and densely populated with vehicles in log jam format. You think the Pantops Diamond Interchange is difficult? Try 3:45 p.m. Old Ivy Road. 500+ units of student housing. Greystar. Put the map back on screen if you could.
Charlottesville is, they specialize at log jams.
Look, the Planning Commission of Albemarle County now has it's now in the court of the Planning Commission. Albemarle County staff has kind of said, let's move forward with this. Planning Commission is going to have to go through the proffer phase and say yay to this before it gets to the Board of Supervisors. And before someone starts painting me as a NIMBY and not in my backyard, okay? I'm not going to allow the narrative to be one of Judah and Jerry are NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Don't paint me as a NIMBY. Don't start calling me a NIMBY, okay? I'm all for making housing a reality, as Neil says, everywhere for everyone. But please, does it not make sense to consider, thank you, Neil, I'll get to that. Does it not make sense to consider the transportation, the roads, the infrastructure, the flash floods, the traffic backup? As Greystar continues to push this forward and comes back to the Planning Commission for more juice, and back to staff and back to the Board of Supervisors for more juice, shouldn't elected officials consider the roads, the narrow pathways, the flash floods, and the congestion before greenlighting developments of this size in Albemarle County?
Yeah.
Here's the question. What should come first, the housing or the infrastructure? The infrastructure or the housing? If you're greenlighting developments, should the infrastructure be there first? Or should the green light of the development then motivate the infrastructure to materialize? It's a chicken and an egg scenario.
I would say you start with the infrastructure. I mean,
me too.
By building the housing, you're just creating more more vehicles that will need to go through that area as you're updating the infrastructure.
That's how I see it. Greenlighting the housing before the infrastructure is in place is going to only put pressure on fast-tracking the infrastructure because the housing needs the infrastructure to support it.
Yeah.
Does that not seem straightforward?
Yeah.
But why doesn't it happen that way? Political pressure?
I would think that I mean it's not like it's not like you have the same people would be building the housing as would be building the infrastructure. You would think that you could at least start the infrastructure and get a head start on it while the housing is still in committee or whatever.
Here's Anonymous on Twitter DM, the deep throat of the I Love Seaville network. Anonymous. He says, I happen to have an office on Old Ivy Road.
Oh, man.
And I walk, or at least I attempt to Foods of All Nations for lunch. For pedestrians, Old Ivy Road is a total menace.
No doubt.
Multiple times I have had to jump into the bushes to avoid being clipped by a car as I try to walk through the railroad underpass. I have been sort of surprised at how the road handles Ivy Gardens traffic pretty well in spite of the railroad underpass bottlenecks at both ends.
Yeah.
It gets really hairy when Stab, St. Anne's Belfield drop-off and pickup happens though. Seems to me that if the Ivy Gardens apartments could work. Okay, excuse me. Anonymous says this: it seems to me that the Graystar Apartments could work if Graystar kicks in money to fix the underpass situations. Alternatively, maybe UVA could give a little help to alleviate the housing shortage by providing access from that property to Leonard Sanders Drive. The underpass has got to get fixed. If you're adding 500 plus apartments to that area and the entry point for that is the underpass, that's a nightmare.
Yeah. It's an impossibility.
That's a nightmare. If Graystar wants to make this happen, you create proffers and you pay the county some money to figure out this traffic snarl. And this is yet another arrow in the quiver that supports my argument that Ivy and the Ivy corridor will be completely unrecognizable in 15 years, 13 years, when my son is a potential first year at the University of Virginia.
That means better traffic. I'm all for it.
I mean, if they improve the traffic flow. I mean, you got Academic Village 2.0 happening over there. Data science school, hotel, conference center. UVA bought Ivy Square Shopping Center for $20 million. They just bought the Moe's Barbecue site, which is not even half an acre, for $2.6 million. I've already explained to you how the Lewis Mountain neighborhood, a neighborhood of 800,000 plus homes and up, is going to turn into Jefferson Park Avenue 2.0. Student housing, keg parties, and ripping bingers, and keg stands, and swap and spit, as opposed to slip and slides for toddlers in the front yard.
It's a shame.
That's life. Change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. Graystar, pump the brakes, solve transportation, fix infrastructure, and then get the brakes going again. Let's go to Champion Hospitality Group. How do we want to navigate the dance that is Champion Hospitality Group? Hunter Smith's company. Hunter, I'll straight up say this multiple times. Hunter, you'll eventually watch this. He's been incredibly nasty to me on social media. Multiple times. I've never returned the nastiness back. Not once. It's easy to be nasty behind a keyboard with keyboard muscles.
Yep.
It's easy for you to do that, Hunter. Now, you seem to be in a struggling state. It's not me that's saying it, it's all over social media.
Yeah. When people are writing about it on Reddit,
Facebook, Reddit,
you're in trouble.
Instagram, all over social media. Champion Grill closes with a sign on the door. That's how employees find out. Pretty, choose my words carefully here, because I don't want to kick a dog when the dog is down. It's obvious checks to team members are bouncing. Everyone's wondering about the 3 points of sale he owns in the downtown mall. Passiflora. How do you say the other two? I can never pronounce the names.
Brasserie Saison.
Brasserie Saison and
Brasserie.
I just don't even understand it. And the other one?
Is it Saison Suzette?
Which never, I mean, what was that? I mean, did you ever understand that concept?
I never went in.
Never went
let's
in.
See.
A place that now has a piano in the window. Passiflora. He owns a percentage of Siren, Laura Fauner's restaurant. Word on the street is Craig Hartman's buying him out of Champion Ice House, the fried chicken joint in Gordonsville. Word on the street is Reason Beer is allegedly very close to closing, if not closed already.
Yeah. Word is that the
Staff is Hasta Luego.
yeah jumping ship.
Jumping ship. we got a situation on our hands here, and it would be easy to throw shade, but I'm not going to do that, Judah. Instead, I'm going to look at it from this perspective. Having staff not having pay at the holidays stinks. Job security and not having it at the holidays stinks. Things good over there?
Yep.
You keep me in line, okay? I count on you for doing that. No job security or pay on the holidays is unfortunate. My hope is a lot of these staff members who are now out of work can latch on with other beer or brewery brands or F&B businesses.
Yeah, and bolster them.
And help strengthen them and bolster them, yes.
Yeah.
I'm very curious of how this is going to impact the Champion brand in totality, the first brand, the flagship tap room over here in between the downtown mall and Belmont.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to have a it's one thing to have a tap room, but if you're losing your brewers,
I do not.
You've got quotas to send to Kroger and Food Line and
Production
else.
contracts.
Yeah.
I do not understand the concept of expanding quickly into food and beverage businesses in a market that was saturated with food and beverage businesses. Mm-hmm. Many of these food and beverage businesses launched during the pandemic and difficult economic times.
Yeah. You would have thought that was a time to scale back.
Tighten the money.
And, yeah.
Tighten the hatches.
Yeah.
In the last couple years, we had the Grill in Stonefield launched, Who's Brew, which barely opened on High Street, the coffee shop launched,
Yep.
Passiflora launched, Siren
Buying Reason
launched, Buying Reason launched, Champion Ice House launched, all within the pandemic or after. Running a one-unit food and beverage business is difficult enough.
Yeah.
Multiple units during tough economic times when financials from family are drying up, difficult to understand. My first concern is the team members that are potentially out of work, and hopefully they can start filling or joining the teams of many of these F&B businesses that have vacancies.
Yeah.
Do we have too many restaurants in this area? Obviously. You can make an incredibly strong argument that we have too many brewery, winery, distillery businesses in this area as well. Too many.
Yeah. Unless they're selling, across the U.S.
And I need to emphasize this. 2023 next year, from a disposable income standpoint, will be worse than 2022. Are you in agreement with me?
I think we're going to see some hard times.
You think we're going to see some hard times? We're in the beginning of it.
I think so.
I think so as well. The disposable income that is at the hands of locals will be less next year to support businesses in these fields, not deeper. The credit card debt in America is at an all-time high for the country. All-time high. And that credit card debt has become more difficult to manage because of higher rates associated with floating debt. Nothing I said here threw shade or knocked the owner of this brand. Nothing. Not a single thing. Kevin Higgins is right. He tried to buy the church on Earlysville Road to create a beer adult summer camp business. And the people along Earlysville Road were like, dude, you can't buy this church on Earlysville Road to create a beer summer camp business for adults? And they kept the turn of events from happening and materializing. Because I believe Kevin Higgins, didn't he have to get a special use permit for that? To buy that church and make it a beer summer camp? No bueno. My concern is this. Champion's got some good beer. I like the Missile. I like the Missile, your flagship beer hunter. Is this the overextended nature of what's happened here going to impact what you launched initially with Champion and beers like the Missile?
It'd be a shame.
Is that what's going to happen here? I got 4 minutes before our traditional Tuesday conference call with our one of our VIPs. I want to throw this idea out there. Maybe this is a topic for later in the week, maybe tomorrow. First Night Virginia has been canceled. Do you want to relay any new information about that or no? You broke this story. What you said on this network turned into news not only on CBS 19, but on NBC 29 as well. You made news on this show that turned into news on the 11 o'clock news.
Yeah, well...
Like, actually, that's what happened.
I mean, all I really know that's new is that I've been told that
Judah's got inside info.
That Drake Van de Castle is currently...
Who's the head of First Night Virginia.
He's the president of the First Night Virginia committee, or whatever you want to call it, council, board. And he has been, I don't know how, I couldn't tell you when he moved there or how long he's been there or if he ever comes back to Charlottesville, but he's currently living in Atlanta. I don't know about Atlanta. He's living in Georgia.
He's moved from the area. The president of First Night Virginia, you have heard from an incredibly reliable source, and we won't say who it is. The president of First Night Virginia is not even in the area. He lives in another state.
He lives in Georgia.
We got 2 minutes and change for the conference call.
He clearly hasn't been, he hasn't, in prior years, First Night Virginia has garnered, I think, enough money to put on everything that it does, and then the money that it pulls in from
was used
tickets,
the next year.
Yeah, was used to and
fund future events. We got to be succinct here.
He clearly wasn't doing that, and he also wasn't passing the baton. So that's why we have this situation where, at the beginning of December, there is no plan whatsoever.
So here's the idea. Judah broke that news. Here's an idea that I want to propose to Ludwig Kutner and Alan Kajin and Susan Critchell. Ludwig Kutner, Alan Kajin, and Susan Critchell of Ix Art Park. Should First Night Virginia, a version of First Night Virginia, we can call it Ix Park New Year's Eve celebration. Should that happen at Ix Park? You have the parking, you have the common area, you have the infrastructure for live music, you have a brewery, you have an area for food trucks, you've already hosted many events and parties, you've hosted holiday markets, farmers markets. Ix Park has already been an answer to the city market issues. It's succeeding at Ix Park, the farmers market. Should First Night Virginia now be replaced or substituted at Ix Park with Ludwig Kutner, Alan Kajin, and Susan Critchell leading the charge? Should we see a version of First Night Virginia at Ix Park so the community has something to enjoy and the community can be championed in communal spirit at Ix Park, with it now not happening on the downtown mall. That is the Tuesday edition of the I Love CVille show. This topic and more tomorrow, 12:30. Do not miss it. Conference call. Ready to rock and roll. Let's do it right now.